Aloha, this is Steve from Akamai Data Solutions, a Datacraft Hawaii company. This screencast will cover the fields in our voter data. Be advised that by Hawaii law, this list can only be used for electioneering purposes. Any other use can result in fines and imprisonment. Please note that this sample file contains no valid data as I have created this for publishing on the internet. I'm using Microsoft Excel 2007 for this screencast. Excel is the most commonly requested data format. However, we can provide the data in a variety of other formats, such as DBase, ASCII, comma delimited, in fact, ASCII delimited by any character, fixed length data files, and more. The first field that we're going to cover is our rep field. The rep field is the state House of Representative district, then the precinct, and then the full name of the voter, followed by the parts of the voter name so that you can sort this alphabetically, or you can create a personalized letter and you can insert first name or last name throughout the letter. Then there's the resident address, the R address, which is where they reside. Please note that you should never use this address for your mailing. We use it for walking, creating a walking list, and the voter office uses it to determine what district and precinct the person belongs to. In many cases, the information in the R address is only a general area or a town. In those cases, mostly on the neighbor islands, there's no specific street addresses, or there might be some, but there's not all of them have it. So in that case, definitely you don't want to use the resident address. But not only that, even if the address is a valid deliverable address, a lot of people will not actually be there, such as a student away for college or a military person who's overseas. So they will have a different mailing address, which we'll cover later. In fact, sometimes it's just a matter of preferring to get the mail at a different location. So we'll cover the mailing address a little later. Next, we have an odd-even code, which indicates whether the street number is an odd number or an even number. Next is the directional. So that's like a north-south directional. The street name, the designator, place, street, road, unit, city, state. Well, no, we don't have state because they gotta live in Hawaii. And that's it. The reason we have these parts is so that you can put this into a walking order. And we have the way to do it in our documentation, the file layout. So you can look at that if you get your file out of order. We provide it to you already in walking order because it's a little tricky to get it sorted that way. As you can see, well, the way we walk sequence sorted is first it's by the rep and the precinct, and then we go by the street name, and then the directional, and then the designator, and then the odd, even, and the number. So as you can see, it's a little bit tricky. So the way we want it to come out is we want the odds to be separated from the evens so that you can walk down one side of the street, turn around, and come back the other side. And this allows you to do that. The reason we included the precinct in this sort is so that you could break up the walk list among your volunteers and not have to worry about them overlapping. All right, next we have the affidavit, which is the number assigned to the document when you register, saying that everything is true. And the reason we have that is because these three fields in combination create a way for us to take this data or this voter and match him to a voter file, say 5 years ago or 2 years ago. And we can then transfer things like his voting history from those previous elections. It's not perfect, so there are some errors in these transfer of data, but There's no other way to really do this other than this. So, unfortunately, we've tried looking at names and addresses, and people change their name and they move, and uh, this stays the same unless they, for some reason, need to re-register. Then it might change. However, there are data entry issues. The data is punched in by human beings, so of course this is subject to human error. And besides that, a large amount of data is actually punched in during the election years when there's a lot of activity, and it's more than the regular staff at the voter registration offices can handle. So they bring in a bunch of temps. And when the temps come in, they need to get trained, but they're not really that familiar with the system or the data. And problems can happen with coding or typos and that sort of thing. Um, However, I have to say it's pretty accurate. In looking at the data when we do these matches, I would say it's probably over 90% accurate, 98, maybe 99 even. It's very high. Um, but the cities do really quite a good job with this. Then we have the county code, the OHA code. This is when you were required to have Hawaiian ancestry in order to vote in OHA when they registered. Then there's more political districts. Then we have the mailing address, which, as I mentioned, might be different from where they live, and the city-state zip that goes with it. Zip plus 4. Let me just move this down. Carrier route, line of travel order, the delivery point, and the check digit. These are all fields for political discounts. I mean, mailing discounts. So the zip 4, and the delivery point and check digit in combination is what's used to create a barcode. At some point, this probably next year, 2015, it's going to be required that you have another item, the mailer ID, which identifies the mailer. Um, but at this point, that's not a requirement. And again, that's for barcoding, which gives you the best postage rate. Actually, there's another rate that's better. It's the walk sequence rate, which we can provide to you. It expires rather quickly from the post office, so we don't have it in here. If it's something you want, then we can append it to your file. And that would be an additional charge. It can be done pretty fast. And again, you would have to mail it within about 90 days of getting it. And you would only want to do it if you have a good size mailing to make it worth that additional cost. And it is a little difficult for the mailing companies to do walk sequence. So they really only would want to do it for you if you're doing like a postcard or some kind of self-mailer. Um, anyway, the line of travel, cart, lot order, those go together for carry route mailings. So in the case that you can't qualify for a barcode mailing, because perhaps the color of your mail piece is not reflective enough for the barcode scanners to differentiate between the barcode and just the background. And there's a whole bunch of other requirements. And if you don't qualify, then you probably can qualify for carry route and line of travel, lot order, postage rates. But again, it is difficult. So to make that a little easier, because I think it might even be impossible to sort the file in carrier out mailing order with Excel, or at least you'd have to be a really advanced user. So we have this field called cart sequence. And look in the documentation, I believe it was zip code carrier route and this field. If you sort on that, then you would get the sortation correct. So we try to give you ways to do difficult things easily. Then we have the last transaction. Last transaction is a date that the voter record was last modified by the voter. And it can be for a variety of things, such as a name change, moving to another location, It could be the initial registration, in which case the last transaction should be the same as the registration date. But I have seen where it's not the same, so I'm not really sure how that happens. Um, the last transaction goes with this field, the transaction type. So an M means this was a change of name and a move to another district. Shoot, I don't remember what a D stands for. R is re-register. Looking for N. N is the new registration. So typically what you would use the last transaction for and the last transaction type is to identify people who are new in your district. So in fact, some of our customers buy a data file and then we do an update. Some will buy a completely new data file to get everything up to date. Others will just buy the people who are new. So what we try to do to get people who are new, and it's not perfect, we're not going to catch everybody, but we use the last transaction date from the last time you purchased data from us, and we look at the transaction types to find people who are new or moved into the district. And then we do a little more because moving the move code is you get that code even if you move within the district, but you're in another precinct, I believe. So, they're not new to your district, they're just new to a precinct. Um, yeah, I'm not totally positive. I believe that was true though. All right, next is the status indicator, and the FV means they failed to vote. And the status indicator is a field that is used to indicate voting, well, how good they vote. But it's a very short, it doesn't go deep into the voting history. So if we look at this, um, the FV means the last two elections, which would be 2012 and 2010. They didn't vote in the primary or general for any of them. The F means they failed to vote, and so we see that this is correctly coded, and we see that A is absentee, V is voted, and a blank would mean that they weren't registered at the time of that election. So if you wanted to cut your mail count down because you're trying to save on costs, you could, one way to do that would be to take all the FVs out of the mailing. And it's a pretty significant number. However, I should say that we did a study some years back on one rep district, and we found that a pretty significant number of people with the FV code voted in the next election. And so if you have a close race, you really don't want to do this. Um, let's see, 12 means they just, well, this is actually a miscode because this should have been failed to vote over there. Um, we do correctly see that they have an A here, they absentee voted. Absentee voted. So if they absentee voted at least once in the last election, like this person, they should get an A here. Permanent absentee flag or code. That means that this person has requested to receive a ballot by mail for every election. So you would want to mail these people early. So as you probably know, the ballots go out several weeks before election. So these people can start voting before everybody else can, which means you can't wait. Uh, you need to start hitting these guys before their ballots arrive in the mail. Let's see. As you can see, we have quite a bit of voting history. The PFTV stands for primary failed to vote, and the GFTV stands for general failed to vote, followed by the election year. And we go all the way back to 1998, and we cover transaction type. So now we want to talk about salutation and the addressee, which applies to mailings. So when you're ready to do your mailing, that's when you use these fields. Salutation is for a letter. So your letter would start off with something like Dear Mr. Mornles or Dear Ramosin family. and your envelope or postcard, your mailing information would use the addressee. So it'd be Gorgonio, Mornless, or the Ramosin family, and then the address, mailing address. Um, the way that we assign this is this is actually a household. So this is a one-person household, and this is a two-person household. This one's a four-person household. And we household on the last name and the residence address for Oahu and last name and mailing address for the neighbor islands. And again, for the neighbor islands, we use mailing address because in many parts of the neighbor islands, the resident address is just an area, not a specific street address. Let's take a look at the resident address and names for this family. Okay, so the Ladernas, there's several of them. They all have the same address, residence address, so they make up a household. The first of them has the last name and family as the format for the addressee, and you can see how the salutation is. Now, if there's only one person with that last name at the address, then they take on the full name of the voter for the addressee. Additionally, the family code will have a yes if it's a family and a no if it's not, and that's just a validation field for us and for you if you want to see how this is set up. The F count field, F stands for family. This is the family count. Notice that wherever there's an addressee, there's a F count 1. And if there's nothing, then it's a F count 2 or higher. And that's because we take the first person with the best voting record and or the earliest registered. We have a hierarchy that we assign. So the best person is going to be 1, and everybody else gets number 2 through however many there are. And I've seen it go as high as 10, but I wasn't looking to see how many was the biggest number, so it could even be higher. But I did see that many, and that's a good reason why we household, because you don't want to mail 4 pieces to this family or 10 to that other family I mentioned. Just 1 would do it. And the way that you would do that is you would pick all the records that have a F count that is equal to 1. If it's anything higher than a 1, then it's a member of a household and you just omit those from your mailing. All right, we have the phone number, ethnic codes. H is Hispanic. There's a F in here somewhere for Filipino. If you're targeting Filipino, you probably want to do both F's and H's. B is Caucasian. Um, J, Japanese. There's the O for Hawaiian. So we use O because of OHA. And it's not just OHA though. We do use the Hawaiian surnames to identify them. As we do with all the ethnics codes, we use last names. And for some of them, we use first names as well. All the codes are listed in our documentation. Then we have the island code. It's the code for where the mailing address is, not where they live or reside. So MA is Maui, BI is Big Island, O is Oahu, KA is Kauai. I think LA is Lanai, and MO is Molokai, I believe. We have a household number, which is really there for future use. You probably can ignore it, but people in the same household, like these two, would have the same value in the household number. And then we have our sourcex field, which is used for advanced processing and tracking purposes. It's a unique ID for the record, and with this we can take this record and track back to see all the things we did to it. So if you have someone in your district call you and said, my name, you mailed me this piece and my name is all wrong. How did that happen? So you call us up and you give us the number, one of these numbers, and we'll track that record all the way back to the CD we got from the city. And we may find that that's the way the data is in the city, or we might find that something happened. We did change it. And with this number, we can track that record through every single process that was applied to that record and see where the change happened. And that is pretty much it about our fields. One comment about our data is we do several things to try to remove people who no longer are around. So people might have moved away and not informed the voter office of their move. So we take the file and we run it against the post office's national change of address database. And we remove quite a bit of people who have moved. And there's some other codes in the voter file that we use to remove people. And trying to get you a good file. However, there's a lot of people that move and don't register to move with the post office. And in those cases, you're not gonna, or we're not gonna be able to identify them. Something you could do is depending on how complicated, you can ask us to do some special processing for you, and we may do it at no additional charge. And here's an example of one. Here's somebody, oops, that hasn't voted, let's see, all the way since 2006. So it's possible that this person uh, registered just to get Hawaii residency status so that they could get residency rates for UH, or maybe they just want to be a Kama'aina for a little while and get the Kama'aina discount. But whatever the case, it looks like this person is probably no longer here. Uh, you do have to take that with a little bit of salt because, as I mentioned, sometimes the affidavit, gender, and reg date could be off, and we're transferring these from election to election. And if one of those codes are off, then this could be off. But like I mentioned, the error rate is very small. So more than likely, this person just hasn't been voting, and we could take them out for you if you want. Like I said, just ask us if there's something special you want done, and if it's simple enough, we'll do it for free as long as it's at the same time as we do your initial order. So if we have to go back later and do something, we'll probably charge you. And that's it. It covers our data fields. And one last note, the next another video I'm planning to create is on creating a mail file and labels from here. But just a real quick hint for you now is the first thing you would want to do to create a mail file is sort this on the F count. So all the ones are together, then the twos and threes. Then you would look for where the ones turn into twos, and you would want to block everything from there to the bottom. So you'd be blocking all the twos, threes, fours, etc. And then you delete them out, and that would leave you only your F count ones. So that would be your household mailing file. Thank you for listening. Aloha.